Welcome Pisces to your in-depth monthly horoscope for October 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout features to look out for. Please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. Now, Jupiter is your traditional ruler, and it's going to feature in an incredibly powerful way in the last week of this month. I can't wait to share that with you. But also, Venus, the planet of relating, moves after a long journey since the 5th of June, in a very practical part of your scope, moves into your sector of partnerships and harmony on the 9th. It is going to be met initially by Saturn in your sign, so I need to give you some insights around that. But we then have a very expansive set of influences developing for you. And there is also a solar eclipse on the 14th, a lunar eclipse on the 28th. So much to share. Please stay with me for more. I'd just like to share a very exciting opportunity with you. If you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, based on your personal birth data, I'll prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. Plus, in my special 30% off package, you can get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but give you a much more intimate understanding of how to make the most of these. Please see beneath this video for more. And finally, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 zodiac forecast, please see the link below where you can do so for free. So Pisces, as you come into October, the Sun and the dramatic energies of Mars are in house 8, which is going to be a really powerful influence for you, not just this month, but over the next 18 months too. So what is the 8th house? Well, it has very much an energy of Scorpio. It's about transformation, but it's very earnest, intense, passionate, desirous. In terms of intimacy, we're wanting to get the love life that we feel we've always deserved. In terms of money, it's using our longer term resources very shrewdly. In terms of business, it's being speculative and entrepreneurial in a way which transforms our situation, makes us feel more secure. But also in a spiritual and mystical sense, it's where we can evolve, go through a phoenix part of our existence where we can be rebirthed in some kind of way. And all of that is possible over the next year and a half. Sound dramatic? Well, stay with me for more. Because on the 3rd, Black Moon Lilith, very much to do with desire, has been in a very brittle and very picky part of your situation the last 9 months. Well, that moves into your sector of relating. And then we also have Venus, the planet of relating, in a sextile with Mars. Now, Venus has gone through a long journey in your 6th house. You may have felt that you've bent over backwards to please certain people since June the 5th. You have a capacity in your nature to be very compassionate to others, but maybe at times you have felt that this has become a little bit too automatically expected. And maybe it has been in a romantic relationship, even as around things like who does the domestic chores. But here, Venus may still be rather practical in the first 9 days of this month, but Mars is raunchy, and together maybe there's someone you work with that you're rather drawn to, or maybe if you can have a big discussion with a current partner about who contributes and does what, that can clear the air and bring you closer together. Or if you are someone who's interested in squeezing more out of your assets, you can do so in a passionate way in the first week of this month. But Mars also from the 3rd through to the 12th clashes with Pluto. So these are the two rulers of Scorpio. So there's that scorpionic theme again. Pluto's in the part of your situation and has been since the 11th of June, which is about your future hopes, your friendships, your network. But Pluto reveals things. It's also to do with power and leverage. And it's not always a particularly pleasant influence. It can be quite a dark influence. So when we've got Mars in the 8th house battling with Pluto in the 11th, the 8th house can be about possessiveness, jealousy, control. And if you feel your future in a relationship you're in at the moment is in some way threatened by those kind of behaviours, you may be thinking very carefully about whether you do want to be in that relationship for the longer term. Also on the 5th, Mercury, the planet of communication, moves out of your sector of relating, where it has been since the end of July, going through a 10-week retrograde season. The retrograde itself may be only 23 days, but the pre and post shadow periods may have meant there's been a lot of cross wires, a lot of miscommunication, or perhaps you've had to work very hard to get your point across. Now Mercury goes into Scorpio, where it really dives deep. It understands the subtext in this sign more than any other. But for you, Mercury, if you are thinking about mortgages, insurances, pensions, those kind of things, stocks and shares, Mercury in the business-like 8th house, but in the sign of balance, the host for you, and communication and relating, Libra, means that if you can relate into those situations skillfully, there are benefits to be had. But remember what I said about being taken for granted with Mercury in that retrograde, or there's been strains in relationships. Well, on the 9th, Venus moves out of your 6th house of obligation and into your 7th house of relating, replacing Mercury that's just moved. Now, Venus going into the 7th house is one of its strongest transitions because Venus rules the sign of Libra, and that's all about the descendant, the 7th house. That's where we connect and get nurtured by our interactions with others. So it's a good change, yeah? Not straight away, because it comes into a direct opposition with Saturn. So if there is that sense that you've been trying your hardest to make something work, get someone to hear, clarify your viewpoint, and you don't feel it's got through, or you feel that there's some control going on, or some drama or politics that you can do without in any kind of relationship, I think Venus going opposite Saturn could freeze your responses. And whilst you can be, someone who really will go that extra mile to help people, once you dial out and go the opposite way, you can be as cold as a trout at the bottom of a stream in the mountains. And, with one beady eye, you can look up at your quarry, the fisherman, and they ain't going to get you. So, once your goodwill is taken up, you can go in the completely opposite direction. Remember, the glyph of your sign has two fish going in opposite directions. So there may be some critical discussions to have, you can see, in this early part of the month. Pluto does go direct, that Scorpio theme again, on the 11th. It's been retrograde for you in the 11th house since the 11th of June. Blimey, all those 11s, that's something, isn't it? And it's going to be in your 11th house through to the 21st of January next year, where it will be in your 12th for 38 weeks. But on the 12th, we have Mars, the traditional ruler of Scorpio, moving into Scorpio. And the great thing about this, Pisces, for you, especially with all these dramas that have gone on between Mars and Pluto early on, maybe about who does feel that they have the control. Mars moving into Scorpio, it's the traditional ruler of this sign, but also it shares your water triplicity. Things can flow a bit better. Also, Mars forges an immediately positive trine with Saturn in your sign, which was causing that mischief with Venus. So in other words, as soon as Mars moves into Scorpio, it's connecting to Venus. So we got a connection we had earlier in the month between fire, the position of Venus, and Mars in the air sign of Libra, and now Venus has gone into Earth and Mars into water, and Earth carries water, conducts it very well. So I think that there can be an improvement in dialogue at this point of the month. But the 14th is really dramatic. We have the solar eclipse in the sign of Libra, the first of a new series. It's going to provide a backdrop for an initial first 6 months. We get a testing point on the 28th of March when we have the Libra lunar eclipse. How far are we going? How far are we developing with the theme? But then we have the opposite eclipse on the 8th of April in Aries. Now for you, that means that the Aries eclipse is about the second house of everyday money, self-worth, your personal evaluation of who you are. But the first one, the solar eclipse, is where you're most devoted, where you're most invested. And that can be, with the pension provider you've got, or it can be with the lover you have. It just depends. But the 8th house is very intense. If, for example, you've wanted to make use of your resources in a more effective way, the chances are, because of the balance of Libra, a balanced approach can take you far, especially if you're communicating well with others. It's just that this quincunx is with Uranus in your 3rd house, which is a very intense, quick moving energy, which is making you very restless. The 8th house requires a slower evolutionary phase of your situation, and your ideas at times may feel very over aroused. So you may feel a bit hard, find it hard to sit still and digest some of the deeper energies that the solar eclipse is asking you to grapple with. But it won't just be for that initial phase through to the solar eclipse in Aries, because it's coming back. Another second solar eclipse in Libra on the 4th of October next year, year 2024. So for the next year and a half, I can guarantee to you that spiritually, psychologically, certainly in terms of your financial situation, and perhaps even romantically, you're set to go on a massive journey of change. And it won't necessarily be easy, because the 8th house can be where things come to an end. So it can be a phoenix-like influence, and then we evolve and emerge from the ashes and we're reborn, so rebirth. So very Plutonian, what dies will be reborn. So in a sense, because it's the 8th house, that Scorpio theme, although it's hosted in the sign of balance Libra. So then from the 19th to the 21st, Mercury, still in the fair-minded Libra, gets into a squabble with Pluto, following on from that Mars-Pluto right angle. But on the 20th, there is a Mercury Cazimi. It's a superior conjunction. So as we see it, the Sun comes first, the Mercury positions behind the Sun. But what this does, the Sun amplifies the speedy abilities and logical abilities of Mercury. So if you are considering a contract, travel, expansion in some kind of way, and it is around your using your resources or wanting to experience things in a very powerful and potent way, you can download things in an enhanced way with the Cazimi's support, but it does square with Pluto. So I think some very intense observations or life lessons or experiences are possible right through this month, to be honest, and it is going to be a theme, as I say, for the next year and a half. But then on the 22nd, Mercury makes its way to join with Mars in your sister water sign of Scorpio and angles brilliantly to Saturn in your sign. So each time you experience a maelstrom of over arousal, really, in terms of your senses, in terms of your thought processes or anxieties or fears, which the 8th house can be very much about, you can then almost immediately come into the light. The Sun then squares up with Pluto. This is one of the most important aspects that happens any year. Whenever I'm doing the planning for each year's forecast, I always look, when the Sun will be squaring up with Pluto, which will happen twice a year, and also when it goes opposite and of course conjunct. So what we've got here is again the potential for more incohesion between what you want to change that takes you to that brighter future, Pluto, in the way you really want, but you may have to deal with the financial reality, or because someone feels they have ownership over a situation but they see it differently to you. So a lot of politics is possible. But then the Sun makes its way into Scorpio, and that's really good for you. I feel that if you're setting up some travel plans at the end of this month, it really is what you need, or some kind of escapism. I think the early parts of the month could be quite heavy at times, so if you can ventilate your world with a trip out, venture off somewhere with a friend, do something a little bit more independent, go on a foreign jaunt, visit a show, watch a band, go to a museum, anything that really shifts the mode and makes things looser and freer is definitely something you're going to really appreciate. Now Mercury and Mars come into a conjunction at the end of this month, and they're pointing back across the heavens to Jupiter. Jupiter can bring you fortune between now and the 26th of May around your ideas, but particularly around the 23rd of May. Don't be surprised if you get a new car around that time, or you have a very pleasant exchange with someone, perhaps text message exchange, perhaps it's going to be in person. Two planets of fortune coming together, good time to buy a tick. Not encouraging you to spend money you haven't got, but if you do like a flutter, keep that date in mind for next year, 23rd of May. But here we have Jupiter facing back towards Mars and Mercury. Overall, I feel that's a very optimistic influence. Jupiter sometimes can be over-optimistic, promise more than it can realistically deliver. In Taurus slows it down, keeps it more grounded, and that's good for Jupiter. But in an opposition to Mars, it really could give you a lot of enthusiasm for your ideas. So if you are someone who's got a business idea you want to develop, you'll be absolutely buzzing by this stage of the month. And maybe you are going to have some wrangles about who will buy in, invest, or maybe it's at work, getting a boss to believe in what you want to do. Maybe it's purely for yourself with a small business venture. By the end of the month, you're really going to want some excitement, stimulation, broaden your horizons. The whole of the previous 2 weeks, the first 2/3 of the month, 3 weeks I should say, very charged up, very intense. Things are changing. That may mean letting go of something that served the purpose to you for a long time but no longer does. And it means evolving. And Pluto is something we can resist bitterly. But you know, when we subject ourselves to its power and let go and accept that we don't have control, which Pluto is also about, then things start to evolve much more positively for us. So I think at the end of this month, by the time the lunar eclipse occurs in Taurus, the last in the series between Taurus and Scorpio, I feel that an exchange of ideas, moving around, new mode of transport possible even now, you're certainly going to have a lot of conviction about whatever you want to do. Sometimes people can find you a bit sort of mutable. You know, you'll have one mode one day, you're in a different space the next day. As this month comes to a close, if there is something you feel passionate about, you're going to drive it forwards like you're in a chariot, you know, driving things on, really exciting. And it could lead to a major breakthrough. But what we've all got to do in October is take these two eclipses and combine them in a way which is workable through the last third of this year, but into the first quarter of year 2024. So for you, the 8th house about transformation, stimulated by Uranus in the 3rd house, you will have new ideas coming in, and you may have to change some things that you're quite attached to, whether it's a relationship, a property, a way of working, a job, your money. And then the full moon reflects, the lunar eclipse reflects that Uranian influence on the solar eclipse. and once more is pushing you to expand your thinking, and that therefore can change the inner mystical 8th house of your chart, which is very much about life and death, big, huge evolutions that are going to play out in your world over the next year and a half. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Pisces. To check out your year 2024 deep dive astrology and horoscope forecast, please see the link beneath this video. But for now, stay safe. Please like, comment, share or subscribe.